Do you feel unseen and unheard? Does it feel like your voice and your opinion doesn't matter? Does it feel like every time you say something to someone, they just don't hear you? This is the thing, we think communication is key, but comprehension actually is. You can say something over and over again, but until a person is ready to understand you, they're never going to meet you where you're at. But this doesn't mean that you should keep quiet, because at the end of the day, using your voice empowers you, no matter what the outcome is. My name is Angela Cleary. I'm a feminine empowerment coach. I specialise in healing after narcissistic abuse, and I also offer twin flame and spiritual guidance. We can find it very difficult to open up, especially in relationships of any kind. It can be any kind of relationship. Because of our childhood, a lot of times in childhood, we're told to shut up, stop crying, stop making noise. Kids are supposed to be seen and not heard. This travels on later in life. And it's not even just childhood. It goes back further than that to past life persecution, which I call the witch wound. We were persecuted in past lives, burnt at the fucking stake for speaking our truth. This follows us on. Add that to your inner child trauma, and then obviously add that to the toxic relationships you're in, where every time you did fucking speak, you were told your opinion doesn't matter, or you were blamed for the trauma you spoke about. So every time you got vulnerable, you were made to feel like you were wrong. So that's why we bring that healing or that wounding further on into our lives. And it gets to a stage where we just stop talking. And, this happened for me. Like, obviously, there was the childhood thing where, you're crying and you're crying and you're crying and you're not being seen, you're not being heard. That follows on. But then you get into this relationship when you're older and you're like, okay, maybe I can trust this person, because your wounded inner child has a very trusting nature. And then you end up in a toxic relationship and you're told your opinion doesn't matter. You're told to shut the fuck up all the time by either your partner or your parent. And you eventually just shut the fuck up. And that's it. Like you end up becoming so afraid to speak that you stop speaking. So this follows on into anything in life. The simple thing of asking for a raise in a job, or, just having an opinion in your job. Being in a group setting and, you're afraid to speak up because you're like, oh, they're just going to laugh at me. They're just going to reject me. And this continues with everything. So, we end up just stopping. And then when we do become strong enough to speak, or we have spoken, it's shut down or it's unheard. And that makes us revert back into our old ways again. And it's like, oh, I'll just keep quiet. I'll keep quiet and I won't speak. And I've been working on this wound now for a long time. And I've noticed it come up very, very loudly with certain things, not just in relationships, but, in certain dynamics. I've been doing a lot of Zoom courses or group communities, and I'm kind of sitting back there and I'm kind of going, I won't say anything, it's fine, it's grand, I let everyone else talk. And I love talking. In my videos I love talking to people. It's just what I do. But I can feel that inner child wound come back up, and it was like I was afraid to speak. I was afraid to be seen, because when you do speak up, you're shut down. So it was like, I'm better off if I don't say anything. And as I'm working on this wound, I'm starting to use my voice again. I'm starting to believe that I have something to say, and that what I do have to say does matter. But what I've come to realize as well is often we kind of have to repeat ourselves over and over again because somebody doesn't hear us. And I've had to do this a few times. And it's like you're repeating yourself. You feel like a broken record, and this can make you revert back. This can make you just kind of go, what's the point in even saying anything? But what we have to understand is using your voice empowers you. Using your voice and speaking your truth has absolutely nothing to do with the other person, effectively. Obviously, you want an outcome. Obviously, you want something to be done with when you speak. But no matter what the outcome is, because, if we're going to speak and know and that person isn't ready to hear us, that can make us go back down. That can make us shut up again. But if you let that control the narrative effectively and make you quieten down again, you're going to feel disempowered. The whole objective of you speaking your truth is for you to empower yourself and own your voice again. And that person, if they're the right person, will respect you and respect what you say and will meet you where you're at when they're ready to understand. But this is where, as well, active listening comes in. Communication just isn't just about you communicating to somebody your needs or them communicating to you. Communication is also about listening. And we're creatures of not listening. We're having these conversations where no one is actually listening to each other, and they're just kind of going, right, I'm waiting for her to finish so that I can say what I need to say. You know what I mean? And you don't have a clue really what they're saying. They're just like, I have an opinion, I'm going to say it. And then oftentimes people interrupt each other. And this really upsets me, because this is what happened to me in past relationships, or, you know, even in family dynamics. You'd have an opinion and you'd be interrupted, you'd be crossed over, and you'd be like, hold on now a second. And a lot of times people, you don't even want somebody to answer you, you just want to speak. It's like, please hear me, please listen to what I have to say. And it feels so disrespectful. You know, like, it feels like you're being so disrespected when somebody doesn't actually hear a word you're saying. When you have something deep or something important to say to a person and they just don't hear you. It's heartbreaking. It really is, to actually have to, you know, especially when you've had this wound for so long, you find it so hard to open up and speak your truth. And then when you do, you're treated like shit, or you're ignored, or you're just not heard. You know, like, it's so fucking, you say specific words to a person, you know, specific things. I don't like this, or this is something that affects me. And then a week later, they do the exact thing you asked them not to do. And you're like, did you even read that message? Or did you even hear what I fucking said? You know, and I've had to do this lately, and I've actually had to ask somebody to go reread something I told them, because it's like, you're literally doing what I asked you not to fucking do. You know, and like, this is where active listening and empathy comes in. You know, when you're even when you're the receiver of the conversation, you know, if somebody's speaking to you and you're not listening to them or not hearing them, how do you think that makes a person feel? You know, and it's painful. It's heartbreaking to feel like you're not understood, that you're not heard, or that person hasn't got enough compassion for you to listen to you deeply. And this, as I said, this goes both ways, because I've had to actually learn active listening. I was that person, you know, because I'm such a fixer. You know what I mean? I want to help everyone. It's just, I want to help you. So if somebody's having a conversation with me, it's just like, I know what's wrong, I'm going to tell you. Like, when it comes to coaching, you know, active listening is so important. So I actually had to train myself to active listen. And, you know, I'd be that kind of person to be like, Jesus, I know what's wrong, I'm going to tell you what's wrong, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to fix this. And oftentimes people don't want you to fix them. They just want you to hear them. So, and, you know, it's such a beautiful experience, you know, and I had I had to get feedback on this before I even realized I was doing it. And I found, I'm so grateful for that feedback, because the next time I was in a situation where somebody needed to be heard, I was able to listen, and I didn't say a fucking word. And I heard every single thing that person said, and it's probably one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever, you know, gone through. And ever since then, I've really come to appreciate true conversation, true communication. And it's like literally being able to hear somebody. And, you know, you could be in silence for nearly an hour letting somebody speak, and you're just like, I'm here, I see you, I hear you. And the feeling a person gets, and even the feeling I get if somebody hears me, it's like, thank you. I don't even need you to give me advice. I just need you just to hear me for 5 minutes. You know, and it is the most, it's really weird. It's a really nice and really weird experience to actually have a communication with somebody that you feel heard, that you feel seen, and that you feel like your voice matters. Like, this reminds me, I can't remember what movie this is, but it was a movie, and this girl was either gone to her friend's or her new boyfriend's house for Christmas dinner, or some kind of dinner anyway. And she was sitting at the table, and they were all asking her questions. And she started to answer, and she started to go into this big, long story about everything. And I was just waiting for it. I was waiting for it. I was like, waiting for it. And I was like, what am I waiting for? I was like, waiting for her to be interrupted. And I was just like, what the fuck? And I was like, yeah, like, I was like so weird, because it's like, these people are actually listening to her and actually want to hear what she has to say. I was like, why aren't they interrupting her? And I was just like, it felt like such a weird feeling to watch that. I was like, what? Do people actually do that? Do people actually listen to hear you? To actually want to hear what you have to say? have interest in what you're speaking. It's a really weird feeling, and you don't get it that often. But I as I'm kind of saying as well, is like, we can have that in a conversation. We can have that to and fro listening. But sometimes a person isn't ready to meet you at your level. Like, comprehension is important. You can, as I said, you can actually say something over and over and over and over and over again to a person, and they're not going to hear it. They're not really going to hear it. They might be listening, but they're not hearing you. They don't care. Or they're not in a place of self-awareness to understand where you're coming from. But don't let that stop you from speaking. And that's kind of where I'm at the minute is, the first time I spoke, it was like, oh my God, am I really being heard? It wasn't really fucking heard. And I spoke again. And it really it's so annoying to have to repeat yourself. I'm sorry, but it fucking really is. And then you have to do it a third time. And then it's like, this is the last time. This is the last time I will say this again. If I have to repeat myself one more time, I'm just not doing it. I'm done. Do you know, that kind of way? But one thing I have learned from this experience is my voice does matter. Even if somebody isn't ready to hear it, it's important for me to speak my truth anyway. And I think that's the lesson that we need to learn, is that no matter how, if it's not your fault that a person isn't ready to hear you. It's not your fault that they don't understand what you're saying. But it's your responsibility to still own your voice. And, I'm starting to do it in the other dynamics now again. I'm starting to speak up in the coaching group and all that and feeling more confident, and that's great. But when it comes to this certain situation that I'm in with my twin flame, it's like literally it's like talking to a fucking wall. Sorry, but like, Jesus Christ, I'm not repeating myself again. But like, it's literally, I keep saying to myself, am I doing the right thing? Should I even speak? Should I even say what I'm feeling? And this is what is so important, especially within relationships. Your communicating of your needs is so important, no matter what the outcome, no matter what that other person does or doesn't do. You speaking is so important. And that's what that's what I've come to understand. I keep going through these questions in my head. Should I have stayed quiet? No. Oh, no. Like, I keep picturing myself in this glass box, voiceless, which I've done my whole fucking life. And literally, I keep saying to myself every time I say something to somebody, or, in this situation, I keep saying to myself, should I have just stayed quiet? Should I have let this fucking dynamic, should I have acted or, shut the fuck up like I was told my whole life and not said a word? Would things be better if I didn't speak? No. The most important thing here is the fact that I did speak, no matter what the fucking outcome, no matter how, unready that person is to hear me. My voice is my power. And staying quiet in that glass box is doing no one any good, because it's making me feel weaker and weaker and weaker every time I don't speak my truth. And that's what it's about. And this is what it's about for you as well. Open your mouth. Speak your words. Because it doesn't matter who hears you or who doesn't hear you. Once you actually get that out and communicate what you need, that's the most important thing. And that's what's so important in relationships as well. Like, I've spoke about this before. A woman in a relationship is angry with her fella for not fucking seeing her or hearing her. And then he's like, are you alright? And she's like, I'm fine. Read my mind. And if you don't read my mind, you're a fucking asshole. This is what she's thinking. And then she effectively thinks he's an asshole because he's not reading her mind. Speak your fucking words. And vice versa, and I've gone on about this lately a lot because it's such a big topic at the moment. I think we're all collectively going through it. If you're not communicating openly in your relationships, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you're walking on eggshells around somebody you love and you're not able to speak your truth. Like, and this doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. This can be any family members even. If you can't speak your truth and own who you are in front of somebody, you're not supposed to be around that fucking person. Or there's just something really wrong here where you need to fucking start owning your voice. We are fear of kind of confrontation. We're like, and it's the same in jobs. We're afraid to own our voice because what? Are you going to get fired for speaking your opinion? This is bullshit. oh my God, it's not the right job if your boss is an asshole and doesn't hear what you fucking say. It's that fucking simple. It's not your fault if you actually do, like, you know, we're afraid in relationships, if we speak our truth, the person's going to leave us. That person loves you. If you speak your truth, they're going to respect that. If it's the wrong person, they're going to run, or they're going to disrespect you, or they're not going to fucking hear you. And that's fine. You know, eventually you're going to just have to understand when it's the time to fucking give up, like, because, you know, and that's not saying don't use your voice. That's saying if somebody's not ready to hear you, there's no point in repeating yourself to that same person. But, like, you know, you have to know that this is all about you. Your empowerment. You know, don't go back into that glass box. And that's the one thing I'm pulling myself out of that glass box. And, like, you know, I've been in and out of that glass box for years. You know, for different dynamics have put me back into it. From childhood, from toxic relationships, from toxic family dynamics. I went back into that glass box, and, you know, I lost all sense of who I was because I didn't use my voice. And it's only in the last, I suppose I discovered my witch wound around January, and I not discovered it. I knew I had that persecution wound there, but I was only starting to use my voice maybe in the last 6 months, and it's only lately that I'm actually, I suppose I was healing within the last 6 months, but it's only lately, it's literally the last month, I'd say, that I'm actually, you know, doing it. I'm actually opening my mouth. I'm actually using my voice. And as I said, I keep going back and I keep going, maybe I shouldn't have said anything. Maybe I shouldn't have said anything. And it's just like freaking out energy. It's like, oh my God, go back into your box, go back into your box. I'm not going back in my fucking box ever again. You know, when you use your voice, you feel empowered. It doesn't matter if somebody's not ready to fucking hear you. Your voice is the only thing that fucking matters. It really is. So speak your truth, no matter the outcome, because at the end of the day, what you say will be heard by the right people, will be understood by the right people. You can't fuck something up that's meant for you, whether that be a job situation or a relationship of any kind. If you speak your truth and your boundaries to somebody, they're going to respect them. And if they don't, that's your time to walk away. And it's that simple. But that doesn't mean for you to shut up. It just means that you need to remove yourself from certain situations. Because if somebody doesn't respect your voice or your boundaries, that's nothing to do with you and everything to do with them and their level of understanding. So speak your words, speak your truth, own your voice, and do not go back into that box again. Because your voice does matter, and you are heard and you are seen. And you will be heard and you will be seen by the right people. So thank you so much for listening today, and I really hope this resonates. If it does, please like and share, and please subscribe to my channel so I can reach as many people as possible. And if you'd like help on your journey, please book me for a discovery call today, and I'd love nothing more than to help you in your path.